The Tyranids. If you're anything like me, you fell in love with these glorious space bugs in 5th edition at the age of 10 with a hope and a dream of getting a skittering swarm of these ravenous critters on the tabletop in a glorious arrangement of colour and gore. What I soon came to realise was they are not as easy to paint as the Space Marines I already had. So after a dozen failed attempts at finding a scheme I could pull off, I forgot about them. Flash forward to 2019 and I had a whole other Tyranid army, this time purchased with adult money. It grew a little bit too fast, I believe, but it was another army that unfortunately I never finished painting. The scheme I picked was a bit too elaborate, too complicated, and to be honest, arduous. And it seemed no matter what, I just couldn't keep the motivation to paint the myriad little creatures that I wanted to field. There are so many ways that you can paint these minis, and with the invention of contrast paints, it's certainly gotten easier. But personally, I'm not much for the finish of contrast paints. I always end up wanting to touch them up with highlights, which kinda defeats a great deal of their point for me. But they're not without their uses. So again, I packed this army up and sold it off. Another Tyranids army, uncompleted because of the pain of painting it. Between my friends, everyone agrees on 2 things. 1, a swarm of well-painted nids is the coolest thing on the tabletop. And 2, a swarm of nids is the last thing anyone wants to paint. And so it was that my dream of a Tyranid swarm was left floating in the void, blasted out of the airlock and far out of mind. Until the other weekend. I took my younger brother to see the brand new alien Romulus. Whilst I don't want to get into a film review here, the film was great fun and really hit the right notes, and somewhere near the end, it hit me. I always knew the Tyranids were inspired by classic Geiger-esque tropes like the little vents and elongated heads, but I suddenly realised I could do a whole swarm of nids with just a few colours, no edge highlights, and it could still look awesome. I'm gonna start a new swarm, and this time it's gonna be Xenomorph inspired, my own Hive Fleet Geiger. So I googled it up, surely it's been done, and of course it has. But many of these paint jobs just missed the mark for me. Too light, too green, too highlighty, too not alien-y. I wanted something that would encapsulate the deep light absorbing blackness whilst also showing that bluey tinge that they do in fact have in many instances, and the metallic sheen underneath a glistening coat of slime. But it doesn't end there. You also need to get rid of the eyes, so they'd be more like their alien counterparts. Some people completely swap their heads out. Incredible conversions, but to me, I do still love Tyranids. I want to pay homage to the alien and keep the Nid aesthetics also, by only blocking out the eyes. This for me does enough, and anyone can do it. The most important factor in this is that it is insanely easy and fast. I'm by no means a master painter, though I have been doing this on and off since I was 9. I'm now 26 now, so I do know a thing or two, but I'm not professing to be a great painter by any means. This is for anyone to do. And I mean it. No airbrushing, no fancy techniques or accuracy needed, just basing, dry brush, varnish. So let's jump in. This is how to model and paint Xenomorph Tyranids, the time-sensitive method to amazing Tyranids. Here's what you'll need. Some Tyranids, that'll help. Chaos Black Spray Primer. Citadel Abaddon Black. Citadel Ardcoat. Citadel Dark Reaper. Citadel Screaming Skull. Citadel Lead Belcher. And optionally Volpus Pink. The only non-Citadel paint that we have on the list here is AK Interactive Strong Dark Blue. This is the best blue that I could find to replicate the blue of the Xenomorph. You could probably get this mix by mixing some Citadel paints together, and by all means try. I'll show the difference against Abaddon Black so you can more easily mix it yourself if you need to. But if you've got access to the AK Interactive range, by all means go get this acrylic paint. It is excellent coverage, really deep rich colour. I recommend it. As for the paint brushes, we've got a size 0 detail brush. I find this is as detailed as I ever need to get, and the smallest brush I ever need. I've got an Army Painter standard starter brush. This is for pretty much most of the application here. And I've also got this slightly larger brush for basing and a larger wide brush for dry brushing. This is all you need, and to be honest, you could do without the starter brush or the basing brush. It's just up to you really. Okay, thanks to everybody in the Facebook group who encouraged me to get on with making this guide. Just got a couple of things I wanted to point out off the back of a couple comments. This is a finished leaper next to a primed one, so you can see that there is quite a difference from just the plain black. I've actually gone out of my way and done some things that kind of take it away from the Xenomorph, to be honest. I've made these little in-betweeny vent bits pink, and I've actually give this one glowing eyes, which is something that's totally down to the individual how you want to handle them. You can green stuff these over just the same as the Hormagons are, and I can make a video to detail how I did that. It's a very easy process. It just really involves making a long, really thin sausage of green stuff and just plastering it up either side, mashing it down, and then smoothing it off with a wet paintbrush. Really easy, but I can make a quick video on that, no bother. And I've also gone for a little accent color here with a bit of a purpley pinky of this Davy Jones tendril section. I don't even know what to call this, if there's a scientific word for that. But anyway, let's get in to the process and show you how it's done. First thing you want to do is base the whole miniature in Abaddon Black, every single part of the miniature. One thing very important to note is to get a very smooth, opaque finish. You don't want any bits that are still slightly grey, and it depends on it for this scheme. So what we're doing here is just going over with the Abaddon Black and making sure everything is as black as it can be. Now, I'll be honest, I never thought I'd ever be one for making a video explaining how to paint a miniature. It's never been the part of the hobby that I was ever the most interested in. It's just, I really believe I've found a very effective and quick system to actually get Tyranids painted and them look awesome. Found the film extremely entertaining, and it just gave that little spark of inspiration. And then I realized, holy shit, I only need to color it black or a variant of black and just play with the tones, and especially making sure you're getting it on the undersides here. Every single time you see the Xenomorph on film, every single time it's in the shadows, it appears completely black, and then as it steps out of shadow, it gets that blue metallic sheen. So that's what we're establishing here. Where it is shadowed, it's deep black, or so black that it just absorbs light. That's all the Abaddon Black on. Just gonna give it a little minute to dry, and then we can continue. And while you're waiting, why not base another miniature? Okay, that's dry enough for me now. Let's get a real strong dry brush of the strong dark blue from AK Interactive. You don't want your brush all the way dry, not the driest of dry brushes, because we do fancy quite a bit of this pigment on the model. You'll be able to tell there's a shift in tone. You want this on every part of the miniature. You're starting to see a very subtle change in tone. to the eye. It's even subtle to the eye. As you can see, we're starting to develop a real dark blue tone. Continue this for the rest of the model. Only apply this dry brushing to the upper edges of the model. Leave all the lower portions completely black. And that's done. So you see there's a real slight shift over towards a really deep navy tone across the miniature. Everywhere where the light hits is where it should be applied, and everywhere underneath is where it should be kept fully black. You can really see the difference from there to there. That is what we're going for. The next step is to take your dry brush again and hit it with some Dark Reaper in exactly the same places you hit it before. Make this dry brushing a little bit lighter than the last one. You don't need to do half as much as you did before. Just run over the same areas for about half the length of time that you did on the last dry brush. Once you've done that, you'll notice a real tone up across the model. Now for essentially the final step. This time we're going in with lead belcher. On the dry brush again. This is the finest dry brush that you'll be doing in the course of painting this miniature. Very, very gentle dry brush over all the fleshy areas. Ignore the carapace, ignore all forms of chitin or chitin, or I'm not even sure how it's supposed to be pronounced, to be honest, but just hit all the fleshy areas with a very, very light dry brushing. You can see that sheen up here, and it is really just gentle dry brushing. I've used the same brush for the whole miniature in this phase. I haven't needed to go back for any more paint at all for this process. It's very important not to overdo this. On a miniature that's pretty much monotone, it's very important to play with these different tonalities and to play with these different shines and textures on the miniature to give it a little bit of variation through its appearance. And there it is. At this stage, you can just go ahead and hit it with 2 good, generous layers of technical art coat. That will actually bring out the colors, and they'll be more saturated than they are before you put the wash on. If you really want to go completely true to the alien aesthetic, you can leave it as it is now, because there's no parts of the alien that is really any other color except for these. However, with the lictor not having any teeth, on the Homogorns, the Screaming Skull is used for the teeth. I also use Screaming Skull and Vulpus Pink to create this effect. At this point in the miniature, as we've just gotten up to, just carefully touch these in with Screaming Skull and drop a bit of Vulpus Pink in. But if you're being really true, this is kind of where you'd leave it. Whack your hard coat on, and there you go, that is a miniature. But of course, to me, that wouldn't be any fun. So I'm going to go ahead and pick them out and show you how I do it. Don't be worried if you make a mistake here. You can always go back over it with the strong dark blue and touch it up. And that's really all you need to do. Just make sure you've got a good bit of pigment. Pick out those little raised bits, and that's all you need to do. Do that across the miniature, and then you'll be ready for the next stage. And yet another sidestep away from the traditional alien black, I like to also pick these little bits of connective tissue that hold together these claws here. And the back here, this little weird reverse kneecap. I like to pick these out as well. What's great about this scheme is that it leaves so much time for what I think are the more fun parts of this hobby. Perhaps the gaming, the modelling, making awesome bases, cool glowing effects, things like that that aren't sitting there toiling over highlights and layers and washes, layers and washes and highlights again. The more fun, creative things that you like to do. Whatever that is for you, this scheme is going to leave you more time to do it. Excellent, they're all filled in now. I'm going to hit them with the Vulpus pink. These give lovely little bright sections that really pick up the model, bits that make it really stand out against the black, but I don't think it detracts away from that dark, shadowy, creepy vibe to them. I'm pretty much using the same brush of paint across the whole miniature and redistributing the Vulpus pink as I go. This is super easy, you really don't need any talent to do this. And that's it, that is a Xenomorph Tyranid, all ready for its layers of hard coat. And once you hit it with the layers of hard coat, it looks like that. Exactly the same process. And it's completely up to you if you want to do things like this, add the glowing eyes in, add the pink tendrils, or even if you want to do that, you could keep it all like that, and you could smash out an army, honestly, in a day. I think if I wasn't recording this and I was just really going at it as hard as I could, quick as I could, I think this miniature's taken me about 25 minutes to do in total. And if I was production lining a whole load of these, I could do the whole lot in an hour. So that's something to be mindful of, guys. I hope this has been helpful for you. Hopefully it gave you some inspiration, or maybe even a base for which to start your own Xenomorph Tyranids. I'm going to be uploading more vids covering modelling, basing, and the different effects I'll be using to spice my own gribblies up. I've also some other hobby related videos for you to go check out, so please feel free to do so and subscribe. I also want to make a special thank you for Kyle Birch, Jonathan Dirty, Eravos, Jared Dixon, and everyone else who liked and asked for me to make this video. Hope this has been helpful for you all. Thanks for watching.